Good day and salutations, my friends. So happy to have you here and see all of your beautiful faces. Today, we'll be talking about the heated rivalry between the Xbox Elite controllers and the Scuf Impact. Now, for reasons I don't want to mention, this is about my fourth time recording this, and we're going to try to do it in a speedy fashion because I need to go live in a very short time now, and I also want to be time friendly for you as well. And speaking of me going live, I do go live right here on this channel every Monday, Wednesday, Thursday from 6:30 p.m. Eastern and on, and Saturday mornings. So if you want to see either of these two controllers live in action, be sure to stop on by. I also want to mention, when I'm talking about these controllers, I am not paid to say any of this. None of these were sent to me. One was a gift, which was the Xbox Elite Series controller from my wife, and this one I bought with my own money. I've had the Xbox Elite Series controller for a little over a year now, and I've had the Scuf for a few months at this point. This is pretty much the only controller I've used since, so I can give a good in-depth review on my experiences so far. And I feel like a few months is all I need with this because sometimes people say it only takes a few weeks to start seeing issues. So jumping right into it, we're going to talk about the price because I know that's the first thing that's on everyone's mind when thinking about an Elite Series controller is, oh my gosh, they're all so expensive. And you're right. When this was first gifted to me, it came in at around $180. To get the Series 1, it costs around $150 for an unboxed, used, refurbished version. And the Series 2, brand new, comes in around that same $180 to $185 price point as the Series 1 when it was first released. And if you don't know if you want the Series 1 or Series 2, at the end of the day, if you decide I do want an Xbox controller, I made a video about that as well, which I'll link above my head. But from here on out, whenever I talk about the Xbox Elite controllers, it'll refer to all of them. And when looking at the Scuf Impact controller, when you go to customize it on Scuf's website, it starts you off with the base version. It's all black. It has the normal PlayStation branding on all the buttons, and it comes in at $150. However, they know, and I know, you're not going to stay with that version. The reason a lot of people go with Scuf is you can customize it to your liking, as I did here. Pay no attention to this white attachment on my analog stick here. That is from Control Freaks, nothing to do with Scuf. It's just a little added boost that I wanted for this controller. But just so you guys get an idea of what you would be looking at price-wise when it comes to the Scuf Impact, I will tell you everything that I have customized on this so far. But clearly, I changed the face of it to be just all white, and also changed the buttons so they were all gold. I did nothing to the bumpers, nothing to the triggers. And on the inside of the controller, you can't see it, but I had them remove the vibration in it. That's an extra about $3, I believe. And I hate vibration in my controllers. It messes me up, so I didn't want it. And the last thing I added was their EMR feature, which is a magnetic remapping of your paddles. So you don't need to go through any softwares or anything else to remap it. It's as easy as slapping that on the back right there. You can see it's pointing to these two paddles. So you pick the one you want, press it down, press the button you want it to map to, voila. And that right there obviously costs more money as well. And after adding all those things, which really isn't that crazy, you've already gone up to $191, so you're getting close to that $200 mark. So those are the prices of the two controllers. And you might be thinking, geez, those are pretty expensive. And yeah, you're right. If you're in the market for an Elite controller, be ready to splash some cash. Not friendly on the wallet. And I'll also say, buyer beware. Be sure that if you are buying it, make sure it is from a reputable company. People on eBay, Amazon are trying to up the price of everything right now, especially with gaming becoming so popular, and they know that. So make sure you're getting a good value for what you're buying. Moving on now to durability. This obviously is pretty important when it comes to controllers, especially Elite controller that you're paying so much money for. You want to make sure you're not buying them a few months after you already spent $200. And the first one we're going to start with is the Xbox controller. This one, straight away, I would say, minus one thing, which I'll mention later, is probably my favorite overall build of either controller we're looking at here. It fits comfortably in the hand. I am used to Xbox controllers, so of course the clunkiness of it really doesn't bother me. However, one thing that kind of led me to buying the Scuf is the fact that, probably due to my dainty girl hands and the small nature of them, I had been experiencing some hand cramps over hours of gaming, and that's something that I wanted to see if I could get rid of. But we'll talk more about that in a few seconds here. When it comes to the buttons, like I said, I've had this over a year now. Zero problems with stickiness, which some people have reported on, especially in the version 2. But so far, for me, in the version 1, I've had zero issues with it. bumpers have all stayed intact pretty well. For your triggers, has a nice feature back here. You see these green buttons. If they're both up like this, then it has the full throw of each trigger. And when they're both pushed down, that is your hair trigger feature. You can hear the hair trigger stopper in there. And just gives you a little bit extra of an advantage, especially when it comes to shooter games, which I mainly play, in getting that first bullet off before your enemy. And the first thing I probably should mention is just the overall build quality is just the sturdiest controller I've ever held in my hand. Probably why it's so heavy, but if you don't really experience hand cramps or anything like that, I probably have a very unique case, then you're probably pretty comfortable with the fact that it feels so sturdy, because you can be rest assured that it's probably going to last you for years to come. And moving on to some other features I love the analog sticks on this. They are built so well. Metal on the bottom here, really good rubber on the top, and they're easily interchangeable like so. It's magnetic. They go on like that, and you even have a third option that is a bit of a medium height with a rounded top if that's more of what you like. So that's one thing I really like, is that you don't have to pay extra for those things. It already comes in the box with the controller that you buy, which you would expect paying the price that you're paying for this controller. And I feel like it kind of makes up for the fact that you can't really customize the actual look of the controller as far as colors go and stuff like that, like you could with the Scuf. And of course, I have the rounded D-pad right here, which I much prefer over the normal one. And then moving to the back of the paddle, which is probably the main reason most people buy an Elite controller, is the paddles. And this is also one of my favorite features on this controller, is just the placement of them. I feel like they did a really good job at where they decided to put these paddles. And I'll show you this in contrast with the Scuf when we get to the Scuf. This and the way the paddles are laid out is just, it is just phenomenal. I mean, it's kind of mind-blowing to me that most Elite companies don't really mimic anything like this. I mean, it's naturally where your fingers fall. So why would you not want them to be in the most easily accessible place for your fingers? But anyway, that's just, I really love it. Have never had an issue with it. And as far as like how I game, the games I play, this type of layout on the controller, just with everything about it, from the front back to the paddles, it just allows for just the most ease of use I've ever had when it comes to a controller. But of course, nothing is perfect. And even though my hand cramps weren't an actual physical defect of the controller, it may just be me. We do have the grips here on the back. And as you can see, if I get closer here, they started to get a little bit of crap in them. And also it is starting to bubble. As you can see right here, there's a little bit of a crease. And if you see I push down on it, there's just a little bit of give. That's just something that I kind of notice with my eye. It's not something I actually feel when gaming, and it's not detrimental to my gaming either. But it is something I've heard from other people, and it's something I'm actually personally experiencing, so it is something to note. However, once it gets bad enough, you can just peel that back, clean it out, super glue it back on. It's good as new. Moving on to the Scuf and its physical features. Now, it's very difficult to hold, but the first thing you'll notice is that the Scuf is definitely a little bit wider overall. And you might be wondering, well, if you have such small, girly, dainty hands, why would you want that one? And that's because this thing is light as a feather. I think I don't know how it actually works. I would assume there's only air inside of it, which to some people may be a little concerning because, like I said, with the Xbox, it just feels so well made and well constructed that the durability of it will last you years. And for this one, of course, it's the exact opposite. But like I said, I have been using it pretty extensively for a few months now. And as far as the physical nature of the controller goes, I haven't had any real big problems. Now, unlike the Xbox controllers, it doesn't come with other analog sticks to replace in and out as you choose. So like I said at the beginning of this video, I did get a little add-on feature from Control Freaks, which is just a little attachment to the joystick to kind of raise it to help me with that aiming. And also, I'm kind of glad I did get it because something I noticed when it comes to the actual Scuf analog stick and the rubber they have on it, I have zero clue where they got their rubber, but it is the worst made rubber I think I have ever seen on the face of the planet. If you don't use a Control Freaks attachment, which that itself also wears pretty easily, you'll be going through analog sticks like crazy. After just one gaming session without the Control Freak attachment on, because I do use this one the most and most aggressively when playing first-person shooter games, I noticed there was black specks all over my controller. And It took about 3 seconds of brain power to realize that my analog stick is literally disintegrating as if Thanos snapped his finger. And for the price I'm paying for this, I would expect something a little bit better, but this does kind of feel like a child's toy in your hand, so I guess I should have expected it. But if you do need to replace an analog stick, they do give you an attachment that looks something like this. That is pretty easy for you to stick on your controller, twist it off, and you can replace it with a new one that you have to buy. So obviously that's a con, but there are some good pros to this controller. Like I mentioned, the light nature of it and the fact that everything is holding up pretty well. I haven't had any button stickiness. I haven't had any stick drift yet, which in my book is a huge win because I did see a few reviews out there, quite a few actually, of those exact problems, which I have yet to experience. And for most people, they would have happened by now. Another thing I really like about this Scuf controller is that it has 4 paddles on the back, which obviously I'm very accustomed to, coming from over a year of experience on the Xbox Elite controller. Now, like I mentioned before, whereas the Xbox fit very well in my hand and the paddles were set very nicely and it was very natural position for me to have on them, this is not even close to that. I don't know why they have it on this design. It's actually a terrible design, and they are, as you can hear, very clicky and just kind of feel overall pretty cheap, which of course it shouldn't be cheap considering the price we're paying for this thing. However, I have heard of people having issues with certain paddles. Most of those came from the version where there's only 2 paddles. So I can say with full confidence so far it's holding up pretty well in that area as well. But I am just trying to outline some areas I've heard and seen of people having issues with and then comparing it to my personal experience so far. So do with that information what you will. But yeah, like I said, minus the actual rubber that just falls apart on the analog sticks, everything else about the controller physically is holding up really well. And then when it comes to the paddles, like I was just talking about, that was just more of a new muscle memory that I had to kind of learn. I kind of switch back and forth like that because my other fingers kind of naturally rest down here. So once I got used to that, it really had no hindrance on my game performance whatsoever. And another positive, if you do suffer from hand cramps like me, then you can rest assured this will resolve those issues. I think it was really just a weight of the controller issue. And so far, I've been actually really liking my experience with the Scuf Impact in that regard. Another physical feature I really like, which is kind of an overlooked part of this product, but it actually probably is the smartest thing that they did with this controller, and that is where you put your USB to connect to your console or your PC. It has like a little cage around it to basically rest assured that if you like bend it or whatever, it's not going to break their USB. What? The Xbox One does not have this at all. I am always worried about accidentally breaking that USB because it is very flimsy, but they have added this little cage right there that you can see where it just goes in nice and snug and I never have to worry about it. And then lastly, like I mentioned in the beginning of this video, it does have this remapping tool, which is obviously a physical feature. And on the fly, if you want to change something, that's actually very nice to have. Ugh, it is so hard to keep these videos short. All right, moving on to the last topic before I give my final thoughts and what I feel like may be the best controller for you. We're going to be talking about the features that each controller offers. And this is more of the technical side as opposed to the physical aspects that we just went over. So when it comes to features on the Scuf Impact, there aren't really many to make note of because they don't really have any. Past the customization when you are ordering it online and the fact that it has paddles, not really much else to it. Again, I can mention the fact that you can remap your paddles just by throwing on a magnet there. That's actually pretty cool and pretty handy. But past that, that's really all for that one. Now, when it comes to the Xbox Elite controller, this does have some software you can download onto your PC and onto your console as well. And you can remap kind of the S-curve and responsiveness of your analog stick, which is actually pretty cool. Physically, you have this button here for each profile. You can set profiles in that software as well. So if you have different button layouts for different games, then you can switch that easily once you switch games. So when it comes to features, that's pretty cool as far as the Xbox controller goes. I will say this isn't really a feature, but also something that I've heard that I kind of wanted to test out myself, which is kind of another leading factor as to why I bought this Scuf controller. I have heard that Sony products, because technically this is a PlayStation controller, at least it reads as a PlayStation controller within your games, have a better responsiveness when it comes to especially first-person shooter games. And this becomes important when you're trying to track a player. Supposedly it's supposed to track a lot more smoothly. The responsiveness is way more smooth, and for whatever reason, whatever technology is inside of it, I don't know the science behind it, it supposedly, I'm not telling you this is facts because I don't know for sure, but supposedly between the software in your controller and your PC is supposed to be a smoother transition. So I wouldn't put too much weight into your decision when it comes to that, but I will say, as far as personal experience using both controllers, I have noticed that I have much better aim while using this controller as opposed to my Xbox controller. I'm not saying there's anything to it. It may just be a mental thing, but I just want to make sure you guys have all the information. But on the flip side, the way that this is, the way that my fingers can touch all 4 of these paddles with ease and just the natural feel of this controller in my hand, my movement on this controller is way better. If I can find a way to combine the two, then we're golden. All right, so we went through the insane price of both of these products. We went through the durability of both of these products, and in my experience, maybe I'm just a lucky guy, both controllers are actually holding up pretty well. And we also went through some of the unique features that each controller offers. Now it's time for my final thoughts. Which controller do I think you'd be happiest with? Which one should you buy? I don't really know. And that's all I have for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Just kidding. If I had to give away one of these controllers and never use the other one again, minus the fact that I have girly hands, I really feel like people would be happiest with this controller. I guess it all depends on what you're coming from. Are you already used to Xbox controllers? Do you hate the clunkiness of them? That's why it's really hard for me to actually tell you which one you should buy. Really just wanted to provide my feedback on each one, the experiences I've had with them, and also reviews I've heard from them. And from this point forward, I feel like I've given you all you really need to know in order to make an informed decision. If you guys have any questions and you want to know something more about these controllers, please leave them in the comments below. I'd love to answer any of your questions. And I also want to remind you guys, I do stream here on YouTube every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 6:30 p.m. Eastern and on, and Saturday mornings. So if you haven't yet, pop on by. Past that, be sure to leave a like on the video if you found it helpful. Subscribe if you haven't already. I'll catch you next one.